Trustee Fellow.
Here.
Trustee Martin.
Here.
Trustee Osterling.
Here.
Student Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. Okay, so next on the item would be public comments on closed agenda items. Do we have any? No. Okay. So we are going to recess to a closed session, and the agenda will be as follows. Agenda item number 1, Government Code 54957, Public Employee Appointment, Assistant Superintendent, Vice President, Business and Administrative Services. Instructor of History, Speech Language Pathology, Temp, Athletic Counselor, Director, K through 14 Technical Assistant Provider. Item number 2, Government Code 54957.9B, Conference with Legal Counsel regarding anticipated litigation, 1 case. Item number 3, Government Code 54957.9A, Conference with Legal Counsel regarding existing litigation. Name of case, Brett Jackson versus Pasadena Area Community College et al. Case. Number 19TCV22080. Item number 4, Government Code 54957, Evaluation of Employee Superintendent Presidents. At this point, we will recess into closed session.
Candace.
That we are all simultaneously teachers, learners, and guests on these lands. This land acknowledgement is a small part of an ongoing process of working to be in good relationship with the people of the land and embodying equity in our practices and policies.
Thank you, Dr. Ramirez. And now we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance by pledge.
Yep.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Oh, look at that. We have an administration of oath for the office of the student trustee, Mr. Emmanuel. So, shall we go to our favorite spot? Okay, and I expect the cameras to roll. Well, you have accelerated, huh?
Yes.
All right, let's get your Pledge of Allegiance, not allegiance, your oath of office. So you will raise your right hand, right? And please repeat after me. I, Emmanuel Gomez,
I, Emmanuel Gomez,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United
to
States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California.
that I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservations
or purpose or evasion,
or purpose of evasion.
and I will
And I will,
well and faithfully
well and faithfully,
discharge the duties upon which I am upon to enter.
discharge the duties of which I am upon to enter.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's take a beautiful picture. Come on.
Thank you.
Now you get to move seats.
Hey, so we want to welcome Emmanuel.
Yes.
And I think he's well prepared at this moment.
Hey.
Very good, very good. Let's allow him to take position. And he's dressed for the occasion. All right, Emmanuel.
Thank you.
Okay, where am I?
You're 6. Adopt
Okay,
resolution.
so item number 6, adopt resolution 731 authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the Board of Trustees, its regular committees, and any other college bodies, and as required by the Ralph M. Brown Act. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, question here, please.
Yes.
So I've read this resolution and would just like to understand as a practical matter how we're going to roll this out on an ongoing basis. And the question specifically is, at least for now, are we going to continue to meet in person? Or are we going to have hybrid meetings? What is the, it's unclear to me by reading this resolution exactly how we're going to conduct our meetings going forward.
Well, I think that's up to the board to discuss whether or not they want to continue doing all face-to-face in terms of the general board meeting, but reserving the option of committee meetings being by Zoom or, so I think the point of having the resolution is to give you flexibility.
Okay, great. So it gives us that flexibility to do in-person or Zoom or hybrid.
That is correct.
Okay, that answers my question.
Very good. All in
Thank you.
favor, raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Okay, next item is approval, reordering of agenda items.
I'd like to ask to move J1, which is about our bond, to C13.
Okay. Do we have to approve it?
With the
Motion
agenda.
to approve.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, in favor, all approved? Wonderful. Okay, introductions and recognitions.
Well, the introduction/recognition I would like to do is to give you a beautiful plaque to honor your service this last year as the board chair.
I will receive it gladly.
He's going to come right over. Thank you. Congratulations on another stellar year.
Yes, it has been. All right. And we shall move to public comments. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
We do. We have 2 speakers. I will read the instructions for both at the same time. You have a green light. You have a total of 3 minutes. Green means you're free to speak. Solid yellow means you have 1 minute. Flashing yellow means you have 30 seconds. And red means your time has expired. The first speaker is Alex Shaganaka.
Good morning. So, I just heard we were discussing about conducting the meeting online. Hopefully, it's not a tragedy as our classes move back to online, because I know what online classes means, and I know what quality does those online classes give us to me. Hopefully, the board meeting is not the second tragedy of online. Good morning. So what do we have recently last month? So yesterday, 2 El Monte police officers got murdered, just in case nobody read the news. And during the 7-day period, the United States has more than 300 shootings, has more than 125 deaths. So we're talking about 7-day period alone. And we're talking about all those schools, they have a fully armed officer. They have much more of, they have 10 times of the campus officer compared to our police department, and they still have those tragedy. I read a lot of criticism about the officer in that Texas school shootings, because right now it's a national hotspot right now. And then people are criticizing about the officers. Why don't you go in earlier? Why don't you stop the shooter right there? Actually, that's exactly my best public comment. I can give that as an example. Let's use an example. Use your imagination. If we have an active shooter right now in this room, I can guarantee you that our officer, nobody is going to break in to stop that active shooter. Why is that? Because our active shooter, they carry the firearm, they carry the rifles, assault rifles. Our officer, they have nothing. Coming into this room to stop the active shooter is equals to committing suicide. And when you read the news, you see the examples every single day, every single week. And all those are basic. It doesn't matter if you read the CNN news, or it doesn't matter if you read the Fox News. The killing is right there. The shooting is right there. The victims is right there. The schools are right there. So no matter if you watch the news, which news you are watching, the number, the fact never change. However, everybody during the 2020, 2021, what is skyrocketing? Not your stock market, but it's the crime rate. It's the active shooting. It's the murder. But somehow, since the first day, I come to this board meeting, I make a lot of assumptions, everybody telling me that you cannot assume. This is America, you cannot assume. But I'm proudly to tell you that every single assumption I make about the active shooting, about the public safety, about the campus safety, they all become the reality right now. After 2 years, after 3 years, after several decades, no action. Another day of beautiful land acknowledgement, another beautiful day of having a beautiful meeting, but another day of ignorance on the public safety. Another day that
your
we
time
have no...
has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. Miguel Trujillo?
Yeah, I like him.
Hey. How are you guys? I'm a student here. This is going to be my second semester in the spring semester. I am part of two programs, the EOPNS program and the DSPNS program. And recently the honors program. I want to bring something up to you guys. I think that there should be some money allotted for a meal program for the EOPNS students. Talking to people on campus, I've seen how many students are very fatigued. They don't have enough money to have meals already set for themselves and bring them here to school. It'd be cool if there was a program like that for students that are part of the EOPNS program. I, myself, as a student with a disability, sometimes I have forgotten out of my anxiety and stress to make myself meals, and it really affected me. But I still got all A's, but it still affected me. So I want to bring that up to you guys, and also I want you guys to be aware that when I approached the dean to make a complaint on another teacher, I was kind of manipulated out of making the complaint. So I just wanted to bring that up to you guys. Those two things. Thank you guys for all your wonderful, beautiful work, and stay gorgeous people inside and out.
Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for regular business meeting of number 19, May 18, 2022. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Okay, we have a first and second. Any comments, questions? If not, please signify by your raising of your hands, the approval.
I abstain, I was absent.
Okay, so we have all except for one abstention. Thank you. Okay, board committees reporting out. Do we have any?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have the ad hoc naming committee. There is we all got a PDF with some of the information. It is really exciting. First of all, we had a very successful groundbreaking event for the Serafian building. I hope you were there. It was wonderful. We have a fundraising campaign that's going to start based on the Serafian building, where we will sell naming rights to all the various rooms in the Serafian building, which will help defray the cost for the furniture and equipment for the building. So we hope for a great success for that campaign. And the naming of the dedication of the Jack Scott building has been delayed until the fall because we need to get DSA approval for the signage. And that's all?
Yeah. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Where are you?
Madam Chair, I'm here. The KPPC committee did meet last week to go over the agreement, the license agreement, and it is on today's agenda. There was no recommendation by the committee because I was the only one who showed up, besides our president. Thank you. We got the work done.
Yes. Martin?
Budget and Audit Committee met, and our two big topics are two big topics that are on agenda tonight, so I don't think I need to address them in any
Thank you.
length.
I apologize, Dr. Fellow. I did get the invite, but for somehow, sorry about
Fine.
that.
We can vote on it
Okay,
tonight.
next, do we have any update on DEI initiatives?
I do. The league is running webinars for the trustees, which I highly recommend all trustees go, student trustees, all trustees. It's featuring two outstanding speakers, Dr. Luke Wood and Dr. Frank Harris, and they have formed the Community College Assessment Lab, and there are hands-on things you do. It's not just sit and listen. And the next one is tomorrow. So if you are, well, the trustees should have the links, and Emmanuel, I can give it to you if you're interested. For everybody, there's a town hall. I know we always talk about town halls, but this one's going to be awesome. This is coming up Thursday, July 21st, 6 p.m., with the focus on student services. So, Cynthia, I invite you and all of your staff to attend, to listen. I always learn something at these town halls, so I do extend an invitation to all, and I think Dr. Androgenis will forward.
Yeah,
Yes,
the
yes.
invitation.
Okay,
I have
that's all.
something too.
Okay, that's all the report. Oh, go ahead.
Yes, unfortunately, Dr. Bolin was unable to be with us, so she wanted me to make sure everyone knew we were having a Juneteenth event this coming Monday, the 20th, from 12 to 1 in Galloway Plaza. That is open to the community, includes lunch. And also, AATMEND, the statewide organization, is convening an all-African diaspora educational summit, and it's in Ghana, Africa, and I am sponsoring 20 people to go to that, and we have put out a call for folks who want to go, and they have made applications, and the cohort will be chosen this coming Friday. And part of the application that was really important was making sure that people already had their passports, because the timing, this is in mid-September, so the timing is a little tight. If you don't have a passport, it's kind of hard. So anyway, that cohort will be chosen on Friday, and I think it's going to be an amazing trip.
I bet it is. Can I go? Okay, all right. So that's where we're going now, right? To
That's
the
where we are
potential-
going now.
Hallelujah.
Candace Jones,
You
Vice
helped me
President.
out, so I didn't have to worry about it.
Good evening, trustees. Thank you. So we're really excited this evening to come and give another update for your consideration on the November 2022 general obligation bond measure that the district is considering. We have two colleagues who are joining us remotely. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves, and then I have two colleagues here in the room. So Charles, are you there?
No.
Charles?
Okay, excellent. Good evening. I'm Charles Heath. I'm a partner with TWDH Props and Measures. We are the strategy and communications consultants on the bond planning effort.
And Adam?
And good evening. My name is Adam Bauer. Our firm is Stillman Rollout and Associates. We serve as your financial advisor.
Good evening. My name is Mauricio Salazar. I am an associate at Norton Rose Fulbright, and we serve as your bond counsel.
Good evening. My name is Trennis Wright. I'm a managing director at Raymond James, and we act as the bond underwriter.
Thank you all. All right, we're going to jump in. We've got lots of information to update you all on. Here's a quick recap of what we're going to cover. We're going to share out information about sort of the process and where we've been. We are then going to deep dive into the GeoBond tax rate analysis, then go into a section where we just talk about the draft project list, as well as the draft bond resolution, and then move into a section around timeline and next steps. What I want to make sure that you all understand is that we're really intentional that these are draft documents and draft information, and as we have questions through them, I have 4 folks here with me as well as myself who can answer and pause on questions that you may have. But just know that our intention is to come back to the July meeting as well and provide some updates, as well as a special board meeting for your consideration of the bond initiative. All right, so just as a quick recap, the college, under sort of this really community effort, not only with our students, faculty, and staff, but also the larger community and our Board of Trustees, worked really diligently in terms of thinking about what our facilities should look like in the next 10 to 15 years. And it's really fortunate that in May of 2020, we actually approved the 10-year facilities master plan. So that's sort of like our guiding light and principle related to much of this project work. Many of you may realize that one of the most important ways that districts K-12 or even K-14 actually fund these sorts of initiatives is going to be through an issuance of a general obligation bond. For those bonds, voter approval is required, and so we are looking to have 55% of our voters that are required to approve for us to move forward. Currently, PCC only has one GeoBond authorization, which is our Measure P, which we all closed out last year and finished those projects. But just for some context, in 2002, 69.8% of our voters supported that bond initiatives. And then in 2021, the district sold and entered into a financing plan for called Certificates of Participation, which are COPs, to help finance PCC's share of the construction of our Seraphian project. And it was really intentional at that time as we were having conversations and with your guidance and direction to really structure that financing program to be sort of this short call with the intention that we would actually come back and pay off the COP with GeoBond proceeds. As a reminder, we have until August of 2023 to do so. So we're not currently making any payments out of the general unrestricted budget for that, with the thought process that with your support, we would go for a bond this November. We have been actually working on this for about a year in thinking about how we work through the timeline. And so in November of last year of 2021, we did an initial presentation to you all to kind of cover the overview of what's needed to go for a bond, some initial timeline and tax rate analysis, just to get us all on the same page about what was needed in order for us to go for a bond. At that time, the analysis showed that PCC could issue between $565 million and $698 million in bonds, depending on the tax rate. But at that time, with your guidance, the goal was that you asked for us to go out to the local communities, and get some idea about what that would look like, what sort of support that our voters would have. And so we did that and came back in early February of 2022 this year to present some of those initial results. Charles, who's on the phone, he's going to speak a little bit to that for you all this evening.
Yeah, thank you, Candace. So at your February board meeting, we presented the results of a baseline survey that was conducted by True North Research, testing potential bond measure scenarios, different bond amounts and tax rates, and potential projects that could be funded by a bond. And we reported some encouraging news to that initial feasibility study. We found that support was between 62 and 65%, so comfortably above the 55% passage threshold for a bond measure, even if you apply sort of the most pessimistic reading of those poll results and assume that we're at the low end of the 3.4% margin of error for the polling. Worst case scenario, we're still several percentage points above 55%. But in addition to giving us a general sense of the feasibility of a bond measure, the polling also provided some helpful guidance as to voter sensitivity to bond amounts, tax rates, and different project priorities that might be funded by the bond. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll just share a few highlights from that survey. So this represents the initial ballot test at the beginning of the survey, where essentially all we've presented to the voter is the mock-up of the ballot question, sort of simulating if you had to vote on this today, based on what you currently know, without having been exposed to a campaign, how would you vote? And we tested two different options. We tested a larger bond measure at $698 million, and that would require a $25 per 100,000 of assessed value tax rate. And at that level, we found 62% support. We also tested sort of a scaled down, smaller bond measure of $565 million that would require a tax rate of $20 per 100,000. So, and that's 65%, a full 10 percentage points above the passage threshold. Now, this survey was conducted the last 2 weeks in January, so obviously the economic situation, the war in Ukraine, gas prices, the impact of inflation has continued to evolve since then, which is why we're preparing to conduct a tracking survey starting next week to provide updated data to help inform final decisions on placing a measure on the 2022 ballot. And if we go to the next slide here, so this is a summary of a series of questions that were asked in the poll, testing various potential uses of the funds. So we read project summaries to the voters and asked them to tell us if that, hearing that the bond would fund that project, would it make them more likely or less likely to favor the measure? And it's that if it's more likely, is that strongly or somewhat more likely to favor the measure? And so you have the ranking here of the different projects. As we look through this listing of projects, we see 3 buckets of projects kind of emerge as the top priorities for voters.
Charles, we lost your audio. Hang on for a second. Charles, can you hear me? We lost your audio.
I can hear you.
There we go. Yep, try again. We lost you after the top 3 issues that voters like.
Okay. Yeah, so there's sort of 3 buckets of project categories that were high priorities for your voters. The first being basic repairs, sort of the simple upgrades to roofs, plumbing, electrical, et cetera, the stuff that homeowners understand. You have to make investments in these types of improvements in order to keep aging facilities functioning. The second area of priority projects was specific upgrades to support science, technology, engineering, math, basically STEM education, labs, equipment, technology, supporting advanced education in STEM areas. And then the last area is job training and career prep, and particularly helping to train students for in-demand 21st century careers. So you'll see as we review the draft project list that those same themes are reflected in the project list that we put together. And again, we're about to conduct a tracking survey where we'll get some updated information on voter priorities on these projects. I'll be a bit surprised if they've changed much. Typically, there's a lot of stability in project prioritization like this, but we'll confirm nonetheless. And then the last highlight from the polling that we conducted earlier in the year is the tax rate sensitivity. And this was probably, the most important finding feedback that we received from the initial survey. This is a question where we really focused voters specifically on the cost element of the bond. And we told them, what if you knew the measure would cost you $25 per 100,000 of assessed value? That's that biggest bond measure that we tested. You can see here at the $25 tax rate, support dropped down to 50%. So clearly there's some tax rate sensitivity. When we lower the tax rate to $20 per 100,000, support gets right back up to 54%, essentially right at the passage threshold, 55. And then when we drop down to 14, we get up to 60%. Now, throughout the survey, we saw, even after we read these tax rates to voters, support for the bond generally rebounded well above 55%. So our conclusion and our recommendation coming out of the baseline survey was we don't need to go all the way down to $14 per 100,000, but that $20 per $100,000 sweet spot seems to be where we want to be at. And again, that's a data point we'll be confirming in our tracking survey, and we'll have some updated data to share with you next month on that point. So with that, I think that segues into our analysis of the bond amounts and tax rates. So Adam, I think that's you.
Great, and our next section does exactly that. We lay out the two scenarios at $20 per 100,000 and also 25. And so if we can advance to slide 10, which I think that we've done, I'll describe one in detail, and the other one we'll just move more quickly on because the only thing that's different about it are the numbers. But on our first slide here, we're focused on $20 per $100,000 of assessed value, which is that middle threshold that Charles had referenced. That middle section are with the multiple colors, and what that's representing is on the vertical axis, we are looking at amount per 1,000. On the horizontal axis, we're focused on years. And these different colors represent series of bonds that would be issued under a new bond measure. And so the blue bars are aligned with Series A, and each time the board issues bonds, it gets another opportunity to look at the structure and vote on it. And so you see here we have it set for 4. It doesn't have to be 4. We've just picked some kind of natural breakpoints when looking at numbers to create that. And what we're focused on is targeting that $20 per 1,000. There's a few things that are very important about having it broken up like this. One is, in many cases, we're issuing tax-exempt bonds. And when you issue tax-exempt bonds, you have some spend-down requirements. The general one that we all kind of think of is that you need to spend about 85% of proceeds within 3 years. And so that's partly why you see here we're looking at 2 or 3 year increments. The other very important thing is that we're projecting for 25 years when we sell these bonds, and we get an ability to recalibrate our projections every time we sell bonds until they're all sold. So we're able to go along and kind of monitor that as things go. But now you get to that bottom table there, and you can see there you don't get all your money at once. You issue it over phases. And then to the far right there, you can see with a $20 measure with the assumptions we've used, we have a $565 million bond measure. And you can see about $561,175 for projects. And I want you to hold on to that number for a minute because we have a correction later in the presentation, and this is the correct number that I want you to remember. And then when you look down there, you can see the term of the bonds go out to 2052. The repayment ratio, that's important. You've maintained good ratings. The highest you're allowed to have is about a 4-to-1 repayment ratio. You can see there we're well below that. We're well below even 2, which is what it's often thought that's what it takes to repay a home mortgage. So the next slide, slide 11. So it's going to look the exact same as the last one. We just used 25 instead of 20. And if we just go to the bottom chart now, because we've already kind of gone through what those different colors mean. Here we have a bond measure just under 700 million. That's 698 million. And projects of 693. And so you can see that incremental $5 amount, how much more that gets you. And we summarize that on slide 12. And you can see, if you just start from the far right there, you can see that section before that yellow box on the far right. You can see the 565 and the 698. But to the immediate right of that 565, that number should be 561, 175, which I referenced earlier. What we've also looked at is kind of what does this cost a typical homeowner within your community? And between these two tax rates, they're not that different. We're between $111 and $131. And we've also broken it down on a monthly basis, and that's between $9 and $12. And you can, you probably are also wondering what is the median assessed value, so half above, half below, within your community. That is $553,970. So that's your typical home within your community, and these are the payments that would be required of them. And so I believe I turn it over to Trennis from here, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those now or along the way.
Thank you, Adam.
Hello, everyone. So, as was stated at the beginning of this presentation, there is an existing measure, Measure P, which was done in 2002. So what we thought we'd give you is some background on that measure, just to kind of put this one you're considering now in perspective, right? So how did we do with the first one? Well, is that graph at top says this is projected tax rate to completely pay off the existing measure you've got, okay? So the $899 is what was levied by the county this current fiscal year, 21-22, okay? And then again, that's per $100,000 of assessed value. So what does that mean? That means if we take that median number that Adam just mentioned, that 553,000, you divide that by 100,000, right? So it's about 5.5 times the $899. So your average taxpayer, your median taxpayer this past year, paid almost $50 for the existing measure, okay? For next year, it's roughly the same. It's about $54 is what it works out to be, okay? And that Measure P, will be paid off in 9 years. So as you will see, compared to a lot of your peers in the community college system, particularly single campus or single college districts, it's a pretty short time, 9 years. So you're in good shape on that front. The graph below kind of gives you a little bit of background on that, which is we compared where you're at with Measure P relative to your single college peers in the area, okay? So Santa Monica, they've got several. You'll see on the next page, we give you more detail. We did it verbally in the committee meeting, but we thought we'd reproduce it, just make it clear to everybody. Just we compared to several peers, which you'll see in a second. But Santa Monica is kind of the big issuer of bonds, and they have, if you've been on that campus, it shows. So they're the top on that one. Long Beach is right behind them at $60. Again, these are per $100,000. So, of course, the home value or assessed value will vary by district, by person. But this is per $100,000 what taxpayers are paying in those school districts, or sorry, community college districts. Citrus right next door to you guys, $48.32, et cetera. But you guys are right at the bottom, right? $899. That's because you have one measure. And as you'll see, if we flick to the next, this one. Is this table here. And again, we didn't want to put them all in here because it would be a bit too crowded to even explain. But we've got yourselves on the far left, which is just Measure P, and like everybody else, the top tier shows that right after Prop 39 passed, everybody came out, right? 01, 02, and started passing bonds. And you were no different. Santa Monica, which is a good comparison for you guys because it's single campus, they came out with theirs in 02, but they've had 3 cents, and they're about to put another one on for November, which I believe is $375 million. Okay. LA, which is nobody's peer, quite frankly, because they're so large. But we thought we'd just to put things in perspective, they've got 4 as well. These are Prop 39 bonds. They did one in Prop 46 as well, but these are Prop 39 bonds in that column. And then Mount Sac, which likewise is close to you guys, have 3, and their last one was a whopper, right? $750 million. And that passed in 18. And they're almost done issuing the bonds. So this kind of puts things in, gives you some relativity, right? Just say, hey, 565, 698, that sounds like a lot of money. And believe me, it is. But you compare it to what your peers have done as far as issuing. And likewise, remember, that number is spread out over your AV, which is over $100 billion, right? Which is why you can get something like $50 supporting your current measure and something like $25 supporting $698 million. Now, again, it's per 100,000, but still, it seems like a small sum to generate that kind of number. But that's why, because your AV is so large. Hopefully that made sense.
Quick question, Rio Hondo, Those last two, I think it's Rio Hondo. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I can't see the logo. That's Santa Monica. Oh, that's
No,
LA.
it's-
All right, never
Yes,
mind.
that's Los Angeles.
Take the question back. I can see it's LA. I don't have my glass on. It's LA.
Yeah,
Never mind, I know the answer.
I got the same problem, trustee.
I was looking at the 3.5 billion number, and I thought that was the Rio Hondo logo. It's just blown out of my mind, but it's Los Angeles, okay.
Enough said.
All right, so let's discuss a little bit about a draft project list and a draft bond resolution. So what we wanted to do is sort of, again, ground this work into the 2020 approved facilities master plan. And so what we wanted to show out is, as that work was being conceived and ordered, there were 7 phases that were projected during that project as folks were sort of considering how to piece together and puzzle out what the facilities planning piece could be over the next 10 to 15 years. So you'll see there are 7 phases, of which what we did was just try to pull the first 0, 1, 2, and 3 phases and articulate them as project groupings. What's really wonderful about not only the facilities master plan is it allows for a lot of flexibility. We could make shifts and changes based on the college's need at any given time. We can pull in projects on a draft project list that can help sort of further the college's facilities intentions, but those can be adjusted at any given time. We can pull in projects that weren't articulated actually in the master plan. So for example, when we went and approved the facilities master plan in 2020, we didn't realize or didn't know what the district's obligation was going to be for the Serafian building. And we had to very quickly come up with a financing strategy to help fund the district's portion of the Serafian building. And so the COP repayments, which are issued to match the state funds for our Serafian building, can be included as a part of this project. It's not necessarily articulated in the facilities master plan, but it's here because it's something, if we express to the voters that that's our intention, we can use bond proceeds to pay those off. So if you look at the sort of project groupings, phase 0, utilities and infrastructure upgrades, or COPs. Phase 1 is an expression of a new STEM building that we've had some conversation around through campus. New Galloway Plaza Cafe, of course, technology modernization and the impact on the classrooms. A new student services building, retrofitting our pool at existing location, a new academic building, and a new plaza area that allows for the district's ability and instruction ability to come out of the classroom and do some really interesting instructional activities outside in this new plaza area. What's important to note, though, is these aren't intended to be ordered in 0, 1, 2, 3, right? They can shift and transform based on the campus's need at any time. They're just sort of like project groupings that we thought may work well together. But as we're working with the community, we can make some adjustments to those things, like including on the bond resolution, real imagination and vision around our satellite campus strategy. That's also been included in the bond resolution.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Of course.
So in this draft project groups, the number here is 618.9 million, and in the recommendation, we're looking at 565 to 638, or that number. So is that is this 618.9 million what you're recommending, or are you?
No,
why is that number there?
It's a great question. So the really important piece about not only the bond resolution, but our project list can actually exceed the amount that we believe we're going to go for. Okay. So, for example, if we have a list that may be 700,000, it allows us a lot of flexibility to make some decisions. So if things get added to it or taken off, it's okay. Mm-hmm. So we want a really robust project list to allow the district some flexibility. This is simply to say, at the time when we were doing some estimations, this was what the culmination of these project groupings were. It's not intended to say, hey, this is the amount we should go for. It's more to say that we've done a little bit of work to see how much these things would cost, but it doesn't necessarily relate to what our bond resolution tax amount is going to be. We're going to really look to the voters to give us some feedback about what that is, which is what Charles shared about us getting more information about what that number should look like.
Thank you, and I have a quick follow-up question, because having been on that facilities committee, when we looked at the master plan, we were looking at enrollment numbers that are going to be very different from what we're seeing now. And I've heard from some folks in the community as we were really exploring this bond that says, well, if you're down in enrollment between 8,000 or 9,000 students, then what are you going to subtract from this bond, or is it still necessary to look at this bond at the $565 million to the $600 million? And maybe that's something that the communication strategist can answer at a later time, but I just want to put that out there because that is going to be a consideration for voters.
Would you like a quick response to that now, or okay? So what's really important about our draft bond list, and again, it including many of the categories in our first phase 0, 1, 2, and 3, is again, it allows us to consistently check in related to enrollment. While we have some really important strategies around re-engaging and bringing students back, if at any point in the next 5 years we decide that, hey, we're going to take another avenue, we can. So the importance about having a really long or expressed project list is it does allow us that flexibility. So yes, we would expect, as we're having conversations through this process, for us to make adjustments as we see fit, as our enrollment numbers determine, certainly as our program needs shift and change over time. We want a great deal of flexibility, which is why we sort of cast the net wider and include more items on that project list so we can actually use the bond proceeds for that. But I'm going to pause and see if Charles also wants to share some information out as well.
Just a sec, Charles. I got to fix your mic.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. You're good.
Okay. No, Candace, I think your response was spot on. I mean, when you adopt a bond measure, it's a long-term plan, right? These are improvements that are going to be implemented over a series of years, and you have to have the flexibility to adjust to changing circumstances. You can imagine all the colleges that passed bond measures in 2018 couldn't have possibly anticipated the impacts of COVID, and they certainly value now having flexibility in their project list to adapt to changing circumstances. So, the project list is a legal document. It establishes the outside boundaries within which you can spend bond funds. And at a higher level, typically, through the bond campaign and the informational outreach effort, you summarize more general objectives of the bond program to make sure the voters understand the overall intentions, while still allowing some of that project by project flexibility.
Thank you, Charles. Did you have any?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right, so we're going to share a little bit about our draft resolution.
So this part of your packet contains the 75-word ballot measure. This is, of course, still preliminary. With Charles' information that will come later in July and presented to the board, we'll fill in these X's. But this is probably the most important set of words right before the voter clicks yes or no in the election. And as you can tell, this is really largely driven by statute and the polling results. So the underlined language that appears in front of you is essentially what is required by law and by statute. So there's really no wiggle room with that. And the language before that, as Charles mentioned, really comes from the polling results. These are the top projects that poll really well. So the intention is really to garner, successful vote for the district. But as you can tell, this is really just driven by statute and by the polling results.
Thank you, Mauricio. All right, Charles, do you want to jump in on timeline and next steps?
Sure thing. Is my mic working, Alex?
Yes, you're good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. All right, yeah, we sort of alluded to the next steps, but up to this point, what we've done is we've completed the feasibility assessment, and as indicated, based on the results from the baseline survey conducted earlier this year, we certainly think the 2022 bond measure is feasible. We are now moving into the process of community outreach to build consensus around the proposal. We have recently completed an informational mailing that will be going out to the public, along with other outreach both on campus and in the broader community to make sure people understand the district's facility needs and the thinking around a bond measure and how that might address those needs. And then we're about to conduct the the updated tracking survey to make sure we have a current read on voter opinion, and we'll use that to finalize the bond documents that Mauricio just described. The deadline to place a measure on the November 2022 ballot is August 12th, so we're working against that deadline. And once the board votes to adopt a resolution calling for a November bond election, we then move into that last step, which is the independent advocacy campaign. And by law, no public funds or college resources can be used to advocate for the passage of the measure. So that piece will have to be coordinated and implemented independently from the college. And then the last slide here just puts a little more detail to that. As mentioned, we'll be back in front of the Budget and Audit Subcommittee on July 6th to share the results of the tracking survey, along with our recommendations for the updates to the bond documentation, the ballot language, the project list, the bond amount, etc. We'll be sharing that information with the full board on July 13th. And then I think we're targeting a special Board of Trustees meeting prior to that August 12th deadline in order to adopt the resolution calling for the election prior to that August 12th deadline. And then we would move into the independent advocacy campaign. So that's what I have to share, and I think we're all happy to answer any questions.
And Trustee Osterling.
Question for Charles, and for this I'd like to go back to approximately slide number 8, and it's the slide where we looked at, yeah, it is slide 8, where we looked at the polling results at 3 different levels of assessment. And Charles, you explained that even though in the middle level, which is the $20 per 100,000, that polled at 54%, which is just 1% below the necessary threshold, you explained that that was not a problem, and I didn't understand the thought process. So could you repeat that, please?
Sure. So this question, where we present different tax rates to voters, is relatively early in the survey. And subsequent to this question, we come back and provide more information about what the bond would fund, arguments pro and con, kind of expand on the conversation with the voter, and then come back and retest overall support for the bond. And what we find is in any survey related to a bond or tax issue like this, if you sort of, narrowly focus the respondents' attention on the cost element, the tax rate, you're going to see support go down. But when, that cost information is blended with information about the benefits of the measure, the potential projects and benefits to the community, you see support rise. So, and basically, so while we saw 54% support for $20 per 100,000 at this point in the survey, for the same size bond associated with that tax rate, after people had heard more about the projects and benefits of the measure, we saw support rebound to north of 60%. And that's the reason that we believe that $20 per 100,000 is an acceptable rate. But again, these are details that we will be retesting with your voters, and we'll be back with updated information on this particular point next month.
Thank you.
I do have another question, is that when you look at the tracking data for the tracking survey, And let's say if there's a huge discrepancy between how the voters were polled early on, that was in earlier last year, to where it is now, what is the scenario where you would say, okay, we may need to reconsider the timing of this bond?
I'm going to let Charles respond as it relates to sort of the scenario piece. But is the question related to whether or not to go for a bond or the bond amount?
No, there's whether the timing of going for the bond.
Want me to take that, Candace?
Please.
So, we're obviously going to be looking at support levels in the tracking survey relative to what we saw in the tracking poll, in the baseline poll. And in my experiences, support for these measures tends to be fairly stable. So unless something significant has changed in the environment or people are really feeling the pinch of the economy, support levels are likely to be pretty similar. So if we saw, a 3 or 4 percentage point decline, that would be significant. And I think we would, pause and think about whether 2022 is the right time to do this. Bottom line, we're looking for a support level at the ballot tests in the poll that are at least the margin of error above the passage threshold. So for these polls, the margin of error is about 3.5%. So, 59% in round numbers is kind of the minimum target number we're looking at. So if we see support less than that, that'll be a red flag, and we'll want to revisit the timing.
Thank you.
Trustee Martin?
Thank you. Well, I have several comments. Excuse me. And my first comment is that this has been a really long process. This started years ago with community meetings before a facility master plan. And I had a pretty strong objection to the last time the bond issue came before the board because it was, in my opinion, a quick shoot from the hip. And this is not a shoot from the hip. This has been years in the making, campus community involvement, outside community involvement. And I appreciate the administration and the college and all the work that we have done to get to this point. Secondly, I think we've hired an exceptional team of advisors who have masterfully been able to bring in both community desires and in some ways community messaging, along with our facility master plan, along with a dollar amount and that might be acceptable to make sure that this measure has the highest probability of success. So I have nothing but phenomenal thoughts about all the work that the college has done to this point and the professionals we've hired, because in my opinion, they've all just done a marvelous, marvelous job on their tasks. It all comes down to 75 words. At the end of the day, it's 75 words that the voters are going to vote on. And when there is a similar Measure P committee post-election, they will be assessing everything compared to those 75 words. Again, I think our professionals and administration and the college has done a masterful job, because what we have to do in those 75 words is maximize the flexibility of the district to be able to do projects many years into the future under who knows what circumstances. So we can't put the language too specific where our hands are tied because of future circumstances. Yet on the other hand, they also need to include the language that scored most favorably with our voters. And so again, I got nothing but praise to this point, to this draft, and these particular 75 words. Now, it starts to get to the trustee level. And as a trustee, of course, I want these projects done, and in particular, no surprise to anyone, high on my list are satellite campuses, which this is the only hope. So I'm all in on what we're attempting to do. On the other hand, we as trustees have a unique role, I believe, in this process. And that is not just to present to the people that we represent the best political message that's been socialized to say what they most likely want to hear to accomplish the most amount of money that we want to do, to have the most flexibility to do what we can do afterwards. I mean, up to this point, that's what this does masterfully. But we have a little bit of a different perspective that I believe we have to represent that these 75 words are the best, truest, most transparent presentation of what our true intentions are. I think in all transparency, the words are absolutely correct, but I don't believe they're the truest presentation we can make. And in fact, I think they sell the presentation short. So, for example, as we start to think about and I realize for every word that you add, a word has to come out. But I'm just going to make a couple specific comments on specific languages and words.
See that slide?
Yeah, if we could put the draft back up. I'm going to make a couple specific, and this is a draft, and this is a preliminary informative topic, but coming soon to us will be the real deal. So it's important that I get these thoughts out now for trustees and everyone involved to assess them. So the first thing I do as I looked at these is I parsed them into what I would kind of say are the three verbs, or the three real things that we're doing. And to me, they are to upgrade facilities, as you see in line 1. At the beginning, well, that one up there is a little bit different, but on mine here, it's the beginning of line 2. Up there, it's in the middle of line 2. You get to improve student access, to me was the second point. And the third point starts with the verb after the semicolon at the very end of the third line, fix. So we have upgrade, improve student access, and fix. And then we get into some very specific fix, like roofs, plumbing, electrical, some very specific details as part of our 75 words. My first comment would be, if it were to stay exactly like it is, after in the second row up there, second word facilities, I think it would be important, in my opinion, to add a semicolon to more clearly delineate to improve student access as a part of one of our major tasks. I'll say that slowly, let everybody think about it. So the way you read it now, to improve student access for affordable higher education, is a part of the upgrade. But with a semicolon there, to improve student access for affordability, high quality education in certain fields becomes almost its own unique mission. And in my opinion, improving access to students is through better facilities, which they're both in general saying the same thing, is an important part of the mission. And in particular, because I would pose satellite campuses specifically under that task of improving student access. And that's why highlighting student access as a separate line would be important to me. I hope I'm not being too wordsmith on a draft, and I hope I'm not being too detailed for this, because I realize nobody can, except for the 75 words up there. In my opinion, and I know from the subcommittee that we were in, the expert told us that words like roofs, plumbing, and electrical ring with voters because they understand what those mean. And there's other words like infrastructure that are, what is that? Who knows what that means? Even though last year we had a huge discussion about infrastructure as a nation. But putting that aside, I get that. On the other hand, in some ways, they seem to take our 75 precious words and go down into some very specific weeds where the general topic here, as expressed earlier in this presentation, was basic repairs. I mean, we're talking the basic repairs. So I'm wondering if there isn't a way to use basic repairs or some very clear language that encompasses roofs, plumbing, electrical, maybe a few other tasks that aren't named under basic repairs, and save those words to embellish more of the really fantastic projects that we have in store for our voters that I think they'd like to vote on. So to that, I go back to the second word, upgrade. And honestly, when I read this, to upgrade aging labs and blah, 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 the word that came to mind, the thought that came to mind would be, that's like saying, okay, people, we want you to approve the Louisiana Purchase because we want to acquire the lot next door. That's the way I took it. We've got some fantastic buildings and some fantastic projects, and I wouldn't just describe these as upgrades. This isn't the lot next door. This is a vast amount of important real estate that can accomplish a lot for this district. And I think in some ways it's being shortchanged in the word upgrade. But finally, if we were to include the word upgrade, just doing this one little change I'm about to suggest, and you can copy these notes and parse it, and the real grammar experts can work on these thoughts. But when we say to upgrade, and then we specifically mention aging labs, instructional technology classrooms, career training facilities, all very important, of course, all high on the community favorability list, but we exclude anything else. And a simple change in the language to things like to upgrade facilities, including instructional technology classrooms, career training, now takes us from a position where this is the center of the list, but it's not the total list. So you might consider, if there's a way to get one more word and switch that around, we might give ourselves even more wiggle room in the event that 20 years from now, when the next project's coming down the pike, we need that there. I think that bringing out the improved student accessibility to those students who need it most in our district is a powerful and strong sell to every member of our district. And when a number gets established, whether it's 565 or 618 or whatever number we come up with, I could look at this, and if I were to misread it or be in opposition and try to target it, I would say, $565,000 is a lot of roofs and plumbing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money to pay for roofs. And I realize roofers, plumbers, and electricians are really expensive right now, because I know I'm hiring a few of them. Okay, but $565 is really expensive for roofs, plumbers, and electricians. But $565,000 for satellite campuses that can reach students that can't make Colorado, and tell people that we're not just going to put $565,000 into Colorado, but that it is going to touch all the corners of the district. To me, that is a much more powerful sell. And I think it's a truer picture of the good that we really want to do with this, and why even such a fiscal conservative as myself would be in favor of supporting such an important thing for the students that need it most.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I agree with what Trustee Martin just said. I think you said it very well, very articulate. But I also think, and looking at this, is to move up to improve student access first before upgrades. So I'd like to suggest that, because I think that, to me, that's the most important thing. And even with upgrades, you can even throw in infrastructure under that category. But I think you did a very good job, John, and I agree with what you have to say.
And we appreciate both of that feedback. I think Charles, we can go first, Trustee Osterling, or do you want Charles to give any?
I was going to comment on John's point, so maybe I should comment and then let Charles respond. And Tammy's got her hand up as well. Thanks, John. I agree with John, and he did it in 75 words. Just kidding. 75 words is not a lot of words, and I'm guessing that the underlined statement at the end is pretty much required by...
Everything that's underlined is required by statute.
Required.
It cannot be changed.
So now we have even less words left to be impactful. But I do think we can skinny up all of the words about upgrading and repairs and get in improving student access, but more specifically adding in, in our more remote, distant areas of the campus. So I support what John's saying, and I think if we really wordsmith very carefully, we can squeeze a few words out and add those words in. I also think it's compelling, and again, I understand we've got a very limited number of words here. With my constituents, that we have one red-tagged building, which we're rebuilding, the Serafian building. That's compelling. That's a building that we simply can't use, and we have to pay for our share of that. I believe we have 4 buildings that are yellow tagged.
That's correct.
And that's compelling to even the fiscal conservatives in my district. And again, I recognize that we only have so many words that we can use, and I'm not an expert like Charles is on what resonates best with the voters, but I would lobby for access in the remote areas of our district and our red-tagged and yellow-tagged buildings.
Trustee Silver, do you want to go, and then we'll go to Charles?
Yes. I caution my fellow trustees, and John, that we actually only have 40 words, and we are mucking about with experts who do this for a living, and they have passed billions and billions of dollars of bonds, and I suggest we not micromanage. But I also, for my friend Trustee Martin, I want to make him happy. So I'm wondering if somehow we could slip in the words neighborhood campus and take out 2 words somewhere else. But I really caution the board against micromanaging what the experts have considered language that will pass our bond.
Point well taken.
Okay. Charles?
Well, thank you for the input. Writing a ballot question is a bit like completing a puzzle. When you work on one piece, it messes up the other side, and then you have to go back and forth and try to make everything align properly. So your bond counsel and I have the unenviable task of trying to make the best use of our 75 words and satisfy the different perspectives. So I've made note of kind of the conceptual objectives, I think, that you all are expressing for what you want to see in the 75 words. So we will take that along with the updated opinion research we're about to receive and use that to, continue to work on this and, optimize this draft as best we can for when it comes back to you here in a few weeks for your next review. I want to emphasize the point that these are the last words that every voter will look at before they vote yes or no. So it's really critical that we get this right, and certainly understand that it needs to be, a true and accurate and honest expression of what you hope to achieve with the bond, and we absolutely want it to do that. But it also has to be optimized in terms of, its ability to be understood by a lay audience, and hit on some themes that will generate the support we need to be successful. So we're trying to achieve a lot with a few words here.
Thank you, Charles. Trustee Martin?
I have a question. So I'm reading Exhibit A, and we start with our very important 75 words, which is really the focus. And then it talks about the projects, right, in Exhibit A. Now, is Exhibit A something that goes like in the sample ballot, in the sample, is that
The
what
booklet.
Exhibit A is? Okay. So I'll just give you my take in reading Exhibit A. Well, first off, the first 2 pages are the cell. So, we get that. Okay. The cell's the cell,
Excuse me, can you put Exhibit A on the screen? Thank you.
And then the actual projects are very detailed out, which I have absolutely no objection to, because that's truth in lending. That's great. And they're based on projects to repair and renovate college facilities. Number 2 would be projects to upgrade and modernize classrooms, labs, career training, and projects to improve student safety and campus security. Obviously, that's very important. And I think our first speaker on non-agenda items would agree with that. I kind of expected these categories, and this was just me, and I'm a little OCD, so, I can take it. But I kind of expected these 3 categories to parallel to upgrade facilities, including to improve accessibility and to fix. In other words, I kind of expected these to be more of the details that you would see subdivided in that order. But again, that's just me and how I think and how we organize things. As I read these, and I think they're all in here, but what really sings to me as a great project list was the timeline, and reading down the projects, on the timeline, whether they're that time or not, you start, in my opinion, you start to really get a feel for what we're going to do, with this money, because right at the top is campus utilities, STEM, and HS building. Bing, right at the top. So maybe each of these, I'm sure, is in that project list someplace, and it's just detailed out into some subsections. But it was just, the very first thing I was doing is trying to coordinate the project list with the 75 words, and it really is it's an apples and oranges comparison, right? We're just looking at it totally differently, and maybe that's the best way to do it. I'm just saying, for me, I kept thinking okay, let's see what we're upgrading, let's see what we're fixing, let's see how we're improving student access. Prove it to me. That's kind of what I was expecting. So I'll leave those comments, take it or leave it. Because again, what we're trying to do is make the best presentation possible. And back to my original point in my long comments before, I am confident that next to the Constitution and the Bible, no words put together in 75 could be much better than those 75 words as far as trying to accomplish what we want to accomplish. But my angle on it is to give it the truest picture, so that voters can make an informed and intelligent decision, which I believe when they see the true picture, they will over 55% approve.
Thank you for the feedback.
My comments are certainly, I appreciate Trustee Martin's comments as well, which reminded me that this is a bond campaign. So there are going to be, I hope, mailers and education materials and town halls that will happen from August until November. And so as much as we are putting a lot of emphasis on these 75 words, I would hope that a successful campaign will provide much more opportunities for voters to educate themselves and for the campaign to educate the voters through multiple channels of communication, whether that's social media, mailers, phone calls. So I am certainly fine with whatever is said in these 44 words or 75 words, but I do think that it's also important in terms of how we implement the campaign and how we communicate the campaign.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And yes, the private independent advocacy campaign is the fourth phase of the project.
And I'm going to enjoy this moment as a sense of humor. So I would like to say to all my fiscal conservative friends out there, as a condo owner, that every condo that I am aware of, because it's not just the one I happen to be an owner in, but numerous people have come to me and talked, because we're condo owners, we talk. And it seems like every condo association I know is going through a special assessment to get caught up with the special repairs that previous, the association just needs. And so, these are very smart investments for us condo owners to keep our places up. And in some ways, I feel like here it is, one more great big condo association. We have some things that we have been neglected. We've done a lot of tremendous work, but we've got a few big things that we need to do. We've got some big needs we need to fill in our community. And bringing the quality of PCC education to our areas that need it most and improving this campus to those final areas, to me, is just like the way I voted with my condo association. It's a smart vote. It's a good investment.
You can chair the campaign.
No, he can't.
We appreciate all the feedback this evening. We'll take that and think. We will be back again on the July 6th Budget and Audit Committee Subcommittee to share out some more information about our second polling piece, and then be at the July 13th open board meeting as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation. I'm sure the board will chew on all what was discussed tonight over here. Okay, next on the agenda. Let's bring it up. I think it's approval of our consent items calendar from E1 to G23.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Thank you. Any questions, thoughts? If not, please raise your hand and we agree to approve the budget, approve the consent items. Okay, we're missing one person. You got it. Okay. All right. Next on the agenda. Approve of personnel consent item, calendar H2 through H5, and of course, we know that our student trustee does not vote. So do we have a motion? We have one motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please signal by the raise of hands. Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
If a quick comment
Sure.
on what we just approved. I think we just did our P items, correct? Our personnel items?
Yep.
Yes.
Just a special shout out to our Assistant Superintendent for Finance as the chair of the Budget and Audit Committee.
Where is
She's
she?
now, I don't know where she is.
She's conferring on something right outside the
So
door.
I can talk about her. That's all right, keep her out, that way I can
Yeah.
talk about her. This is an exceptional she's just been exceptional through a lot of this, the bond stuff and so many other things that we're going through, and very clear presentations. And I'm just really appreciative. She's full, and now she's back. I have no idea who we're talking about. I have no idea who we're talking about.
Trustee Martin is talking about you.
Oh, I'm not. I'm done.
All good.
You're getting a good compliment, and to get a compliment from John Martin, it's good because of his financial savvy. Okay, so let's move on. We already approve your promotion. Candace, we approve your promotion.
Yay!
Okay. Okay, so next on the agenda is public hearing and adoption of fiscal year 2022-3 tentative budget.
Because there is no rest for the weary.
Good evening, good evening. Ms. Wang, I think, just exited real quick, but she'll be back. We are going to give you a quick update about the 2022-23 Governor's May revision and tentative budget. Remember, thinking about the tentative budget, it is really just our first starting point, and when we get into our adopted budget, that's when we'll have really robust conversations about where the college is going and what apportionment numbers we're getting. But this is timely, so our quick agenda for this evening is just to give you guys an update about the roadmap to California's future, sort of what the state and the Chancellor's Office, the state is sort of imagining and tying that with the Chancellor's Office Vision for Success goals, the summary of our 2022-23 budget outlook, some legislative response and priorities that we are seeing from the state. It's important that we know that so we can sort of make projections about where some additional revenue may come from, a quick tentative budget summary, a projected fund balance, and we also want to give some updates on the CARES funding. All right, so just sort of jumping in, the Governor's Office has articulated a plan for each of the segments. So University of California, California State University, and the California Community Colleges. And so our roadmap is to CCC Roadmap to California's Future, which has a lot of focus. These are the 4 areas that the state has identified. So greater student educational outcomes, so a lot of focus on not only getting students completed in a timely fashion, but also as it sort of morphs into that advancing equity, sort of closing those equity gaps. But advancing equity is a really intentional expressed interest for the state. Increased intersegmental collaboration. So there's a lot of conversation at the state level about how UC, CSU, and the California community colleges can work better together and trade information and improve transfer outcomes. And of course, improved workforce preparedness. All right, some of these roadmap highlights. The important part about the governor's roadmap is there's a direct correlation for the Vision for Success goals, which really helps to, there's some expression of adding some state leadership. So there's some expression of adding resources at the Chancellor's Office to help support some of these initiatives through partnership and support. What's really key, and I think previously in years past may have felt like an unfunded mandate as it relates to some of the equity work. There's really intentional conversation around not only how the state, but also the Chancellor's Office is going to have this unwavering commitment to equity, continuing to increase support, and continuing to fund existing reforms. There's a lot of conversation around some redesign of the data sharing agreements between the segments with an intentional focus on supporting transfer students and so that they understand and have the tools necessary to transfer to their college of choice. Mm-hmm. There's also some conversation about reducing units and What we appreciate about sort of this connectedness between what the governor is expressing and the chancellor's office vision for success goals, at least there's this sort of, I don't want to say one-to-one relationship, but at least there are tactics that align sort of what has been expressed by the chancellor's office to this governor's roadmap and funding associated with those things. We're going to talk a little bit about ongoing resources and then transition to one-time resources. So the proposed ongoing investments are going to be largely for the state and through Prop 98 is COLA. So there's $555 million in COLA ongoing resources that will be distributed. Some increased funding on our student-centered funding formula base increase of an additional $375 million, sort of to think about and how to supplement the conversation about the student-centered funding formula. There's some initial conversation around support for part-time faculty health insurance. This is an interesting one because there's not a lot of clarity or information around sort of the criteria that they will use to distribute funding related to these part-time faculty health insurance, but we're watching it really closely. There's certainly some additional funding for student success grant completion. Let me roll here. This college affordability piece. So this is interesting because there's $50 million of ongoing funding for student success completion grants, which are going to be expanded through the Cal Grant eligibility. There's been an incredible amount of advocacy at the state level for this, which I know Trustee Waugh has really done a lot of work there. $10 million in ongoing funding to augment financial aid offices themselves, those who are really doing the work around financial aid distribution. $20 million in one-time funding for emergency financial assistance for our AB 540 students. Now, as we transition, so we talked about sort of these ongoing investments. There's substantial one-time investments proposed as well, which I know, where's my executive director of facilities? There's $1.5 billion in deferred maintenance dollars that's being expressed. Another $750 million in the discretionary block grants. And if we sort of get into this physical support in terms of the deferred maintenance dollars, there's a lot of emphasis on focus on energy efficient projects for community colleges, and so we'll see, I'm sure we'll see some trailer bill language around making sure that we are being intentional about how to have more energy efficient projects on our campus. But we're super excited about, last year we had a significant investment, or significant contribution for our deferred maintenance, and that has continued this year as well. This is an interesting one, the $750 million block grant and some trailer bill language. So this funding can be used for any purposes as determined by our local board. And it's given us a really broad way in which we can use the funding. So whether it be professional development, campus security infrastructure, technology infrastructure, open education resources and zero textbook cost degrees, supporting mental health and wellness needs for our students and our staff. And so there's a lot of latitude here that the board will be able to help give some conversation around. But there are some interesting initial requirements. So we must satisfy any outstanding claims for state mandated local program costs. Check, that's fine. But right now what's interesting about this is it's based on our 2021-22 P2 actual reported FTES, which, as you all know, is significantly lower than where we were just a year prior. But we get to record it in the restricted general fund, and we have 5 years to expend the portion that comes to PCC. All right, Ms. Wang is going to walk us through some of this tentative budget summary.
Thank you, Candace. So I'm going to present our tentative budget. So this budget is developed based on the latest government's May revised data that we received. So we're projecting that the state apportionment is going to trend about 167 million, slightly higher than the prior year. And lottery funds are actually a little bit lower than last year by about 700,000. This is mainly because we're projecting that the lottery is funded mainly on our actual FTES. So as we know that our actual FTES is lower than last year, so that number is trending a little bit lower. And our state mandated claim is trending about the same, a little over 700,000. And our non-resident tuition, since our enrollment's a little soft, so that number we trended down about $1 million too. So, and our CalSTRS on behalf payment. So this is an interesting point because CalSTRS is the pension program for our faculty. So this $8 million here represents not actual revenue, but it's a recognition of the value that the state is paying on PCC's behalf. So it's recorded as a revenue on the revenue line, but it's also the $8 million is embedded in the expense line in salaries and benefits. And now we're also projecting about $8.9 million for other categoricals and student fees. So let's look at expenses. So for our expense category, our major investment is in our people. So you can see salaries and benefits encompasses about 88.5% of total expenses. And we're just trending about a little over $1 million for supplies and material, and about just shy of 10% for operating expenses and services. So though that category encompasses our obligated services like the different array of services that we obligated on this campus. And just shy of $500,000 for capital outlay, and about 1.4 scheduled outgoing transfers.
I'm going to make one quick comment for my financially conservative buddies in the room. So we are watching these things really closely because the Legislative Analyst Office is actually projecting a recession in 24-25. So while we won't see those impacts to our revenue today, they have been feeding the CBO's information to say, on the horizon, there may be some rainier times, and so we need to be thoughtful about that. And the only thing I would point out with that, as we're thinking about and as we're making considerations about our funding, is that most of our salary and benefit, our revenue is actually expensed at the salary and benefit line. So we need to be thoughtful about that as we're making decisions on how to move forward, that if there was a reduction in our apportionment, whether it related to our enrollment numbers or just what the state is potentially projecting as a shortfall in 2 years, that's where it's going to hit. So as we're considering this, as we're working to getting more information on the trailer bill language, and how we enter into negotiations in other sort of categories, it's important that we understand that the bulk of our unrestricted general fund budget is actually in salary and benefits.
Yes.
We have a reserve, correct? What is in the reserve right now?
It's a great question. So based on our board policy, we are mandated to have 18%.
Yes, I remember voting on that one. But
yes, you
so
did.
what is the amount?
It's about $33 million.
33, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Sorry, Jesse.
No worries. Thank you. All right, so this slide gives us a projection of how our various funds is going to end up. So the top of the line is our general fund. So what the slide that we just went over is mainly for the general fund. And this is where apportionment lies. So we are projecting, so the transfer, you can see the transfer column outlines the 1.4 million. And what makes up that 1.4 million is coming out of the general fund into these various funds as a contribution. So 500 million is going to Fund 3 restricted general fund. What that is a contribution to police and safety. And 600,000 is a contribution to the district's commitment to technology refresh. So that's going into Fund 41 capital outlay. And the bottom 300, a little over 300,000, actually our pass-through money from the Follett bookstore, so our commission. So we receive it in the general fund, and then we pass it through the trusting agency. And in the next couple of slides, I'm actually going to jump into the next slide first, and I'll come back to this one. So this slide and the next one are actually a presentation of our CARES, the federal relief grant. So this next one is a snapshot of how we're doing on the relief grant for students. So this is our student portion. So as of today, we are awarded $41,752,000 of funding to relief for students, and these are distributed as direct aid in our financial aid office under Dr. Olivo's leadership. So as of today, we have awarded over $27 million in direct aid to students, and we have a remaining $14 million to distribute throughout the remainder of the fiscal year. Well, actually, I should say the remainder of the next fiscal year, June 30th, 2023. So let me jump back to the slide, and then this is a snapshot of how we're doing in relief dollar for the institution portion. So as an institution, we are awarded over $64 million for institution relief. And of those, we have spent $28 million, and we have in process obligated funds to pay another $3.4 million. So as of now, we have about $33 million left to spend for institution portion of relief. And I'm going to ping pong to our Executive Director of Facilities. He's going to talk about the college's investment in facility-wise, of how to keep our campuses safe.
Good evening, everyone. So Jesse's gone over the dollars. I'd like to put it into something a little more tangible. So behind me, I brought some goodies that we've bought. First off, I would like to really thank the board, the president, and my colleagues here at the campus for the efforts we put forward to make the campus safe, and we continue to do as we're coming back to face-to-face full-time instruction. So particular note, during this unprecedented time, we had to pivot a lot. There was ever-changing public health requirements, and we often exceeded those recommendations as we went through and navigated this time. In support of those recommendations, the CARE funding provided facilities and business services with monies to provide, install, and distribute some of the following items. So I know, here's some more numbers. Of those monies, we purchased and instituted 1,814 HEPA air purifier units throughout the campuses. And as you'll see on the bottom here. We installed 400 plexiglass barriers in offices, labs, and workstations. This was on Colorado, Rosemead, Foothill, and CDC campuses. We distributed 388 face shields. We're running about 2,000 N95 and 8,000 KN95 masks to staff a month. We distributed 26,000 medical grade face coverings to students when we reopened and during the weeks that we went through testing, and even currently as we go through the testing programs. Went through 8,900 pairs of disposable gloves, 2,357 bottles of hand sanitizer, 1,840 disinfection wipes, and here's a big one for you. We, on every quarter, change out 1,219 MERV air filters and pre-filters on all of our existing HVAC equipment. We put into service 50 electrostatic disinfectant sprayers, 21 new custodial cleaning caddies. In other words, we threw out all the old mops and buckets and went to state-of-the-art touchless systems. We went in with 21 micro floor scrubbers, just so that we could really clean and disinfect the floors throughout. And lastly, but equally important, we added 10 new custodial positions to facilitate and keep up with the cleaning standards. And we put 70 staff members in facilities through the advanced cleaning tech trainings from ISSA and also our APA standards. So if you have any questions, I'll be sticking around. We can come over and take a look at the goodies. I'll explain a few of them. But that's just to give you a kind of representative of where some of the money went and what it looks like.
Awesome.
That was good. That was a good idea. Thank you.
Yay, very good.
I think we're open for questions if anyone.
Any questions?
I'd just like to make a comment that, I appreciate the work that you and your team has done. I think, Jesse, that was really terrific, and I appreciate how you can really convey some numbers, these budget numbers, to someone who may not be in that fiscal language set. So I appreciate your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candace. Good job.
So now you need to adopt it.
Hmm?
Now you need to adopt the tentative.
Oh, I have to.
Yeah, now
Yes, you do.
you need a motion to adopt the
Move to adopt
tentative
the
budget.
So we have a motion to
Isn't this
adopt
a
the
public
budget.
hearing?
It is a public hearing.
But don't you have to open it up to the public first?
I think, yes.
This is
Yeah.
a public hearing.
The
You have to
public
open it
before
and
we
close
vote.
it.
Yes, that's true.
So they have a right to
Reject.
Yes,
inform
Okay.
and persuade us.
open it to the public. Thank you, trustee fellow.
Okay, so I will
Open the
open
public.
the public hearing, the adoption of the budget. Any comments from the public? None? Close. Now, we will get a vote from our fellow trustees.
I'll make
Do
a
we-
motion to approve.
Thank you.
Discussion.
Do we have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor of adopting the budget? Okay, motion carries unanimously, including our student trustee, right?
Yay, yes.
All
You have a
right.
hand up.
Okay, moving right along, we will now go to the adoption of Resolution 727 to authorize temporary interfund cash borrowing, which is something that we do every year, right? Yeah, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Motion carried unanimously. Next, we have the Southern California Public Radio and Pasadena Area College District Management and Programming Agreement. Do we have any questions?
Motion to approve.
I do
Have a question. Go
Just
ahead.
a quick question. Is there any significant differences between this and the prior agreements?
No, the most significant differences are that it's now in compliance with current FCC rules, and so those were the big changes. And it took a little bit of going back and forth, especially to negotiate the terms and to negotiate some of the items around our agreement, but between that and updating it to come into compliance, it's what it needs to be.
And we had a media lawyer on hand.
Yes, we had a media lawyer on that.
Very
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion, and, oh, go ahead.
We do have the internships in here?
Yes.
As well? Okay, great.
So we do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Thank you.
yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries unanimously. Item number 4, resolution number 728, authorizing various naming opportunities.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, I do have a comment. One of the comments that I received when we were looking at different naming opportunities were that we should really consider people of color, their names on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I cut it short, but that there is going to be a way to honor someone with a naming opportunity that is non-monetary. Bobby Abrams will add a statement to the document that recommends recognition for naming, of criteria for naming that are non-monetary, and diversity is absolutely at the forefront of our thinking. So
Great,
we have
thank you.
Yeah, besides money, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table, right?
Okay, I'll second it.
Okay, great.
Can I just say that it's actually on the bottom of the chart, it says the Board of Trustees reserves the right to recognize non-monetary contributions with naming rights. Nominations for a naming opportunity to recognize non-monetary contributions must be submitted to the office of the superintendent president for consideration. So it's right there on the page that lists the amounts for each of the rooms. Okay.
Okay, so we have a first and we have a second, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so all in favor, please? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, I'm actually excited about that.
It's going to be fabulous.
Yes, that was a great meeting, and I think it's a good thing for us to do. Okay. Now, item number 5, adopt resolution number 732 in celebration of Juneteenth Independence Day.
Motion to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion and second. Any discussion? No discussion? Okay, all in favor? Tony, are you in favor? I didn't see your hand. Okay, motion carry unanimously. Were you in favor? I didn't see you either. Okay, great, including our student trustee. Okay, so next is resolution number 730 commemorating Immigrant Heritage Month. Any discussion?
I'd like the motion to approve.
We have a motion and we have a second. All in favor, please? Motion carry unanimously. Okay, now we have Resolution 726, declaring salaries independent for 22-23 fiscal year. Any discussion?
Just a quick question or observation. We typically pass this every year, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please? All in favor? Motion carried unanimously, including our student trustee. Oh my, we have Superintendent President report.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everyone. So as you know, part of my job is service on state and national bodies, and there are local things that I do. I did give a talk, thanks to Trustee Wah. I was invited to speak at the San Marino Rotary in late May, so I had a chance to sing the praises of Pasadena City College. I also had 2 opportunities to talk about the, what is that? Oop, something's on. I did have the opportunity to talk about the challenges of leading during the time of COVID. One was I was invited to be part of a panel with the Pasadena Junior League and their incoming class, and it was great to be there with individuals who were from different industries. I was the education person. There were folks there from business, 4 women. We served on the panel, talking about what our experience was, pivoting and working our way through the pandemic. I also was interviewed this last Monday by a UCLA dean as well as a researcher from the ECMC Foundation for a book they're working on about the leadership challenges during COVID, and they're interviewing presidents and chancellors from across the country, so I participated in that. I also led a board retreat for the 3C2A where we discussed lots of important issues for our student athletes. We have some interesting challenges coming up, and I will move into the past chair role as of July 1st. So that's exciting. Also, my dance card is quite packed this week. We are hosting the National LGBTQ Leaders in Higher Education Conference today, tomorrow, and Friday. We have today we had a really great panel on what's happening around moral panic and at educational institutions and states, around the moral panic around critical race theory and things like that, and how that's being used in education ways to further alienate, isolate, and treat our already struggling non-white students in negative ways. We had really amazing speakers. We also had a president from Hartwick College talk about leadership. Tomorrow we have Tori Osborne, who has done work, who served as a policy director for Sheila Kuehl, Supervisor Sheila Kuehl, as well as the mayor, and she also has done some task force, LGBTQ task force political activism. She'll be speaking. We will have a presentation on mergers and what it's like to merge an institution. We have one of our board members is Beth Hillman from Mills College, and she'll be talking about the merger between Mills and Northeastern. And then our lunch speaker is Councilman candidate Jason Lyon for District 7 will be speaking as well. And then we have mentoring and other activities in the afternoon, and at 5 o'clock we'll have a reception at the Tournament of Roses house, because when you host one of these, you have the opportunity to show folks something interesting. Also, a fun fact is the last time we had a face-to-face institute was at Bastyr University in Seattle, Washington. That was in 2017. And the president of Bastyr at the time is now the incoming president of the ACCJC, Dr. Mac Powell. So we will be welcoming him to California and to that really important role. We also have done some statewide events with the Women's Caucus. We had a really interesting panel yesterday about student parents. And people say to me, wow, in the summer you must not have that much to do. And I feel like I'm just as busy in the summer as I am during the year. So as I noted earlier, as part of Dr. Boland's report, we will celebrate Juneteenth. We are hosting a conversation exploring our shared histories with former PUSD and PCC student and author Dr. Robin D.G. Kelly. We have also, based on our conversation last month, we've reached agreements with our collective bargaining units, so we will recognize the PCC Juneteenth holiday this year and next year as a floating holiday because of our challenges of incorporating that into our calendar. And we're excited to be able to honor it, even though we would have preferred to be able to honor it on Monday. I also met with Senator Anthony Portantino about bills of interest, especially AB 1505, which would lock us into a higher faculty obligation number. I believe that bill has been put into suspense by the Appropriations Committee in the Senate, so that's good. He sends his regards and says that we are always, that he's always glad to be talking with us, so that's exciting. It was great to see our colleagues from PAPI at the Asian Youth Center board installation event last week. That was on Thursday night, and I attended with Kuei Dang, our executive director of student equity. It was great to see Mike Ng there, who was a trustee in the LACCD who hired me, and then Mike Fong, Assemblyman Mike Fong, who was the trustee when I was there as well. So it's old home week there. And PAPI actually had its June meeting this last Saturday. And this coming Saturday, I will be here at Westerbeck, I think at 11 o'clock, for the dental hygiene pinning. So we have another set. Really exciting. Our math students are proving their prowess. We placed first in the nation in the American Mathematical Association of Two-Year Colleges Student Math League competition. In the last 20 years, PCC has had 14 top 10 and 11 top 10 finishes, and this is the third time we have won the competition. And I believe a faculty member will get to go to Toronto in November to accept the award for this accomplishment. Bobby Abram, Dolores Ibarra, and I had a really great meeting with the head of Huntington Health or Huntington Hospital, and to talk about ways to expand our nursing program. We have a donor who is very interested in seeing what it would look like to fund that expansion. But while we were there, and this will make Salvatrice happy, they, as well as Laura and non-credit, they talked about wanting to have some ESL classes as well as some employer-based training. So we are making those connections, and we came out of that meeting with a lot of really great ideas for partnership. So that's really exciting. And fall registration opened on Monday, and we are running full steam ahead. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Andrew Jonas. That's very exciting to hear that the possibility of partnering with Huntington Memorial Hospital. There's so much that can be done
They also
through a
want
partnership with
and
them.
they also want to expand their RT program. They were saying we can't get enough of them. So
they
we
can't
had,
get enough RTs? Do I need
Yes.
to reinstate?
I think you do.
I think
think
not.
you have a job waiting for you.
I
You just
think
go and
not.
do that certification.
No, but that is really very exciting because most of the work is right here at Huntington Memorial. So if PCC could really develop a good partnership with them, our students will really benefit.
Yes, and now that they're an affiliate of Cedars-Sinai, I
Yes,
think
exactly.
there are even more opportunities.
Yes,
So it was a
yes,
really,
yes,
really
yes.
fruitful conversation.
That's wonderful. I'm happy to hear that. Okay, so we're now going to go to announcement by Share Governance. I received a message from Dr. Lopez. They have nothing to report. So do we have someone from Management Association?
I think Alex has a report to read.
Hi, I'm pleased to report from the Management Association tonight. The PCC Management Association is pleased to report the following. Last Friday, June 10th, the MA held its annual leadership retreat. The topic was The Great Realignment, how mindful leadership can strengthen our personal power to better manage up, down, and across. The session was facilitated by Leadership Pasadena's Carolina Caro. It was a very enlightening and empowering workshop and a topic we plan on implementing in our work and personal lives. We are beginning the process of our new manager and eventually classified staff onboarding program. The Lancer Guide program is a holistic and structured experience that helps integrate new employees into the PCC work environment and community by connecting them with resources and providing a venue through which they can begin to learn about the college and its culture. The MA is proud to stand in solidarity and allyship with our Black PCC family in honoring Juneteenth on campus at the event on Monday, June 20th. We look forward to learning from Dr. Robin D.G. Kelly on how to work together better for all our collective futures. We would like to welcome 2 new members and 1 familiar member to our leadership ranks. Linda Bermudez is our new Director of K through 14 Technical Assistance Provider. Longtime lead custodian Rigoberto Hernandez, who is now serving as the Acting Maintenance Supervisor of Facilities. And we'd like to welcome back Jacqueline Javier, who will be taking on the role of Interim Career Center Manager. And lastly, we would be remiss to close without mentioning a special someone who's rounding the bases, get it, to retirement and taking a piece of our hearts with him, Athletic Director Tony Barboni. Bones, we will sincerely miss your humor, guidance, and friendship. We would venture to say there's been no better Santa Claus on this campus. You've been an absolute all-star leader for this campus. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have someone from Classified Senate?
Good evening, everybody. Last week, a few of our senators, myself included, attended the Classified Leadership Institute in Riverside last week. The conference brought together members from all of the state's classified senates to focus on leadership training, professional development, and effective shared governance practices. We also learned that there will be a lot of DEI initiatives that will be coming down from the Chancellor's office that we hope to learn more about and implement here. We noticed that there are quite a few classified professionals that were board reported this evening for employment. So we just want to say welcome, and we look forward to engaging and interacting with them at future events and activities. I'm happy to report that we have recently completed part of our election process, and the Senate would like to recognize the following senators who have recently completed their tenure: Nairi Zograbian, Felicia Mitchell, Grace Sharler, Jennifer Alvarez, Shalita Gutter, and Carol Liu. Thank you all for your time, participation, and dedication to serving the Classified Senate. I especially would like to thank Ernesto Partida for his loyalty, commitment, and leadership as the Classified Senate President for the past 2 years. He has worked tirelessly in the best interests of Classified, taken our concerns and ideas seriously to implement change, and successfully worked with various constituency groups to build a collaborative spirit. And with that, I'm just going to read something that Ernesto wrote. He's currently at Dodger Stadium rooting for his favorite team. So, on behalf of Ernesto, in the last 2 years, the outgoing Classified Senate Board has worked diligently to create changes that will positively impact the direction to represent the needs of all classified professionals. Some of these things include creating change within the bylaws to create consistency of leadership by extending board terms to 2 years, revising policies around the professional ethics of all classified staff through an equity lens, creating and reinforcing lines of communication across all classified leadership, playing a pivotal role in the partnership resource team effort around collegiality, working with different departments across campus, including the President's Office, Management Association, and PRT to create, most recently, the Classified Appreciation Week. Ernesto says that he would like to thank President Superintendent Indra Jonas for her support, and he looks forward to being an active member of the PCC community to continue to support our commitment to student success. And lastly, as I mentioned, we have completed part of our election process. We still have some ways to go. We're still holding elections for board positions, and I hope to be able to report that out at our next board meeting in July. Though I am pleased to share at this time that I have been elected as the new Classified Senate President, and I look forward to continuing to serve in this role. Thank you.
And she's just so humble. Good for you, congratulations. So do we have the associated students? Are you representing both tonight?
Yeah, I guess I can do both. So I just want to update y'all on some of what we've been doing this summer. And we've been led by our advisor, Carrie Fuso, doing ASPCC summer trainings. We're currently meeting on Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon. And you can find our agendas on board docs. We are currently reviewing the college's organizational chart just to ensure that the new incoming members are aware of who they can connect with depending on the scenario. And students are still participating in multiple hiring committees. We're thankful for being able to get these requests to serve in these committees. At the moment, we do need support in EEO training students. At the moment, I'm the only one EEO trained because we do have new members. So I'd like to request support on that. Also, we are working on developing ASPCC applications for those vacancies that we have, including the student trustee. We have to work on an election timeline for that, and also to seek out committee members for our ASPCC committees. And should I go ahead and just report on?
Yeah, go ahead and report now as the student trustee. Thank you.
Okay, well, just not much to report. Just want to let y'all know that I'm happy to be able to advocate on the behalf of student body and prospective students. I hope to be able to engage with you all, along with the community, at a local and state level. That's it. Thank you.
So first, I'd like to congratulate you again, and I think you're well fit at this point to really serve. You were trained very well. You had the background as the student, associated student. You had your previous student trustee that mentored you, so you are ready.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Okay, now we'll go to our trustees. Let's start with Chinlao.
I don't have anything to report, but I would like to thank you, Berlinda, for your service onto this board and as the board chair. And same with Trustee Wah, to thank you for your service.
Well, thank you. Trustee Fellow.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a former city councilman and vice mayor of the city of El Monte, I'd like to adjourn this evening in honor of the two El Monte police officers, Michael Paredes and the rookie, Joseph Santana, who were killed in duty yesterday. Tragic thing. I knew Officer Paredes very well. He was hired a few years before I became a councilman in El Monte, and I always had a tremendous respect for the El Monte Police Department and all they do and all they did, especially for the young, the children of our community. And may these officers rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Fellow. Trustee Silva. Oh, Lord, this is getting ugly.
Thank you, Berlinda, and you, Linda, for your years of service to PCC. And
How beautiful.
our students. We are a better institution because of your being here, and I want you to know that you are so appreciated.
I truly feel that way. Everybody get flowers. Anything else? Any other surprises? Thank you so much, Trustee Silver. And don't think that this gets you off of the lunch you promised me. We're going to lunch. Okay, let's go down to Trustee Jim Asterlin, my favorite trustee.
Thank you.
Because hey.
I echo
Number one.
Trustee Chen Lao and Trustee Silver's thanks to both of you for your great service. You will be missed. I'm a month behind because I missed last meeting, and my favorite time of the year is graduation, and it's such a rewarding experience to go to the graduation events and the side graduation events. And of particular note to me this year was the EOP&S graduation, the Student Veterans graduation, and then for the first time for me, the Corps graduation. Very, very inspiring to see what we do here at PCC for student success for those particular groups in particular. Moving on from there, I'm really delighted that our new student trustee, Emmanuel Gomez, was elected. I really enjoyed your leadership as the AS president and articulating the student voice for the prior year, and really glad that you're going to be on board to continue that. So congratulations. That concludes my report.
Well, thank you. Trustee Martin.
Yeah, I'm going to add to my fellow trustees. You two have been a powerful voice for students at this institution. You've been a powerful voice for Pasadena City College and the community. And you've been a powerful voice for PCC and community colleges in general across the state of California. And I know no matter what you're doing, you will always be a powerful voice for Pasadena City College. And I want to thank you.
Well, I do thank you. Okay, Trustee Webb, bring it on.
Well, thanks for all the kind words, but this is just business for me. So I did want to thank Erica for making the presentation at the San Marino Rotary. It was very well received, and the community was very well. They felt they were very well informed, and a lot of accolades for you. But not to be outdone, Trustee Osterling will actually be presenting at the San Marino Rotary in October. So if anybody wants to come, you can let me know. He'll be talking about affordable housing, his project here in Pasadena. And then we'll have Dean Derdiarian, who will be speaking in January on the strong workforce in CTE. Also, a couple of weeks ago, I had a chance to meet with Janelle Austin, who is a PCC alum, but she is also the executive director of the George Floyd Memorial in Minneapolis, and really just has, for a young person, very wise words to say, great philosophy. I hope it's as we start to engage more and more of our alums, I hope that we will look to her as someone that we can bring back as a resource. And then I also want to just say, the Chinese American Museum will be celebrating the 40th memorial of Vincent Chin, who was a young man who was murdered. He was beaten to death just a few days before he was to be married. He was beaten by auto workers who mistook him for Japanese American and blamed the Japanese industry for taking away their jobs from the auto industry. So in a time of anti-hate sentiment against the API community, I just like to mention that in memorial. So that's it.
Okay, great. So let me put in my 2 cents before we go, or maybe let's go through the agenda and then I'll give my spiel, since it's my last day, almost. Okay, so what are the proposed future board business?
So the only meeting that's left on the schedule for this fiscal year is the board retreat that is scheduled currently for next Tuesday in the morning.
Next Tuesday in the morning. I would like to maybe say that since you will be having a new set of folks, I think it should be appropriate to
Okay.
postpone it,
Okay, so noted.
right? Yeah. You guys agree, fellow trustees?
Agreed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can I also mention, I do have a problem with July, if I'm on this board. I have to be in Washington, D.C., talking to our California delegation on some very important issues dealing with water. So that July 13th meeting is very problematic for me, unless I could call in.
I propose a hybrid meeting for July.
Would that be appropriate to the other members?
Well, yeah, because Tammy did the same thing when she could.
I was sick, but yeah, I mean, I had COVID.
Okay.
But if it's appropriate, sure.
Would that work for you, Tony?
Sure.
You sure? Okay, good. Lovely. Okay, so
Does that need a
Noted.
motion?
No, it doesn't need a motion.
Okay, so the next will be proposed future agenda items. Do we have any? No? Okay, so before we adjourn, then I would like to give you all my sincerest thank you. I must tell you that I really enjoyed my 12 years on the board. You're like a family. Would I miss you? Somewhat. But guess what? Life does go on in my world. So, again, like I said, it was 12 wonderful years, and I love PCC. I love the students. I will always try to promote our students, be in Northwest or be in whatever. There's nothing negative about PCC because it's a lovely place. I love people, I love children, I love students, and that's who I am. So, again, I'll miss you, but it's going to be all right. Do have a few trips already set up. So, so before we adjourn.
Well, before you adjourn, I'm sorry. I want to go back to the times for next month's board meeting, because we will have maybe 2 new board members on here, and they will be there swearing in as new board members. And I would, I wouldn't want to not have them have the opportunity to be sworn in person and have to do it on a hybrid.
Hybrid is
hybrid
a
means that-
combination of in-person and those that can't make it attending via
Right,
Zoom.
so this will
Okay.
be here.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
Thank
got
you.
it?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other word, I will now adjourn this meeting, and Lati Lati. It's been lovely, ladies.